Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Hope you're doing good. Karl Bryan coming at you for Business Coaching Secrets. I am here today, sans Road Dog. I'm on my way to go to my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Adrian Olsh's celebration of life. So our schedules just did not line up. So I got a few questions from our boy. First of all, he's asking any follow-up to Adrian's tribute that we did last week. And the answer is yes. The answer is definitely yes. Hopefully I'll keep it together better this time as I'm talking about Adrian. But, you know, like in sports, individuals, they score points, baskets, and goals, but ultimately it's teams that win the game. Life is a team sport. Business is a team sport. And Adrian was a team player on steroids, just loyal to an absolute fault. Like, how would Adrian say to win in life? Being wealthy is about slow mornings, a peaceful mind, a happy family, a loyal team, and the comfort knowing you don't need to step on anyone to achieve success in your own right. Adrian was all of that and more. You know, people that tend to be amazing are just different, right? They're different without trying to be different. That's the magic. It's not loudness, nose rings, tattoos, or puffery. They're just different and everybody knows it without it being explicitly said. Like I always say, the crazy ones make all the money. Adrian was just different. You know, he was quiet, but insanely dynamic, an unbelievable storyteller, all while being incredibly introverted. You know, because to be exceptional, you need to be the exception, right? It's like literally in the world. It's literally in the word, right? So building a business is not about, you know, being hyped up with excitement. It's being cool, calm, and collected when things go sideways, like when the launch doesn't work, people don't respond, you get ghosted, when no one shows up to your event, when you ask for a question on a group call and no one asks anything. You need to act natural and in flow, right? Or when revenues are down, when expenses are up, right? When you need to have a tense conversation with a staff member or a client, right? Like when you're ambitious, your competition isn't the other businesses you compete with. It's your lack of discipline, it's your distractions, it's your bad habits, your insecurities, the stories that you tell yourself, what you say to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself matters. You know, it's your fear, your ego, procrastination, you know, your ability to dial in when getting distracted by many things, you know, your phone, social media, your emails, your texts, etc. Like anxiety is the price of ambition. I think that's something we should all accept, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, so like a small-time drug dealer has got really not too much to worry about, but it's when they get too ambitious, right? Just think of the movie Blow, with Johnny Depp, wasn't it? Unbelievable movie, by the way. But, you know, you get a little bit too big, all of a sudden you got things to worry about, right? Like more companies go out of business from growth than lack of sales, right? The ones with lack of sales, they just kind of disappear and you don't even notice them, right? The ones that fail, it's growth without systems and foresight. And I can tell you that Adrian kept us in check, and we quietly built an 8-figure business coaching company together. And no one really heard of us, to be honest with you, right? Like looking like a big deal isn't the same as being a big deal, right? Like vanity metrics, I don't know if they're for idiots, but they're kind of for the idiots, you know, like on Facebook, it's podcast downloads, it's views on YouTube. What really matters is what? You know, it's clients in the door, it's retention, it's cash hitting the bank account. And I'll just tell you that Adrian was the poster child for all of that. You want to build a great company, you want to build great products, is what the one and only Steve Jobs would say. Um, so, thinking about these are just the types of things that he kind of represented, and again, he wasn't loud and he wasn't boisterous in any way, shape, or form, but he was just quietly just a natural leader. Like I got to tell you, it was so heartwarming seeing literally hundreds of posts and comments and shares and pictures of the guy on social media last week. That was just amazing, right? And lots of great feedback, by the way, from the podcast that we did last week. So I want to thank everybody for that. But I'll just tell you, he was one of a kind. Uh, just makes me realize, we kind of built something here that's kind of special. And I'm going to make it even more special with our awesome team. I can tell you that I've never been so dialed in, never. Um, and, he's been unable to work properly for a long time, but we just kept going. He kept going to the best of his ability, and he'd get progress reports, etc. And we just kept going. Like I've worked harder over the last week, frankly, than I have in a long time. But what I want to talk about again is just things that I didn't feel out there last week. There were just some things that I wanted to hit. Like one would be health, um, without question. Like he never missed a day at the gym when he was able, and he ate salad constantly. I can tell you, when I heard the news, I went to the gym. Well, actually, truthfully, I was at the gym, but I worked out, extra hard, stayed longer than I otherwise would have. And then I went by myself. I went and bought a salad straight afterwards, right? He never drank, he never smoked, he never did anything that would resemble drugs. His body was very legitimately his temple. I used to always tell him like to put his shirt back on when we were by the pool because he was making us younger guys look bad. My daughter calls him Papa Adrian, and he absolutely loved it. Um, like one of the great miracles of life is to experience when a man manages to do what he was afraid that he couldn't accomplish, right? I'll tell you, he was never afraid to have a go, to send the email, leave the voicemail, speak to the joint venture partner, do the event, present the new content most definitely, right? He's absolutely magic of that. He didn't pretend to know it all, but he just got his hands dirty, and there's just absolutely magic in that. He wasn't a tech guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he helped make our software absolutely amazing through just sheer persistence and hard work. He was just never scared or never intimidated by anything that he didn't really understand, like example tech, right? Or our staff would help out where needed, and he just made it work. He made it happen, and we can. I just think we can all learn from that. He was all about Goya, get off your, what, and he demonstrated it right there for all of us. For again, he was my business partner for 17 years. Again, in 17 years, we never had a heated argument in any way, shape, or form. It's just unbelievable to think about. But the bottom line, I don't know. He inspired our staff. He inspired me. He inspired our hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches and consultants around the world to do what they didn't think was possible, to push themselves and get out of their own way. There was a time when I thought like doing a daily email, honestly, it just 100% impossible for me, right? It just wasn't organized enough. Well, I can comfortably tell you that my relationship with Adrian taught me impossible just wasn't a thing. So guess what I did? I just got started with him encouraging me along the way. And here we are. I don't even know where I'm at, but like 1,500 days later, right? So, and by the way, he never missed one, and he was always encouraging and helpful. And I got to tell you, I miss those emails from him. That's for darn sure. But anxiety, I said that a minute ago, like anxiety is the price of ambition. He was ambitious to an absolute fault. Well, truthfully, I don't think he had an anxious bone in his body, but he was ambitious on steroids. And again, Goya, he just did it. I think he took the Nike ads very seriously, just do it. Anywho, God bless Adrian Olsch, the amazing man, the real, the man, the myth, the legend. Look, he left his mark, and social media was an incredible place to be last week with all the people, mentioning and honoring him. So again, just want to say thanks to everybody, and just a fabulous, fabulous man. I miss him terribly. Okay, so, and here's literally straight. Okay, so I've got Road Dog's text up here, and he's got, okay, back to regular programming. Okay, so back to regular programming. Okay, so here's a question we got. My client is hitting retirement age, and they plan to downsize. They have a $1.5 million home and have their eye on a $750,000 condo. Curious your thoughts on their plan to free up $750,000 in retirement money. Okay. I'm going to call this a great question. Um, okay, I'm going to give you a frame first. Okay. And some of you that have listened to the podcast for a long time might recognize this, but you've got a business owner, right? And we're going to sell his business. So I get a room of 100 people and I say, who would like to sell their business for $5 million? All right. Guess how many hands go up? Your instincts are correct, all of them, right? So what I've done is I've given them a 5x multiple, which basically means that they had $1 million of earnings pre-sale, right? Well, they sell the business for 5 million bucks, right? And the guy was making $1 million a year. Well, what does he got to do? He's got to pay the business broker, the investment banker. He's got to pay off some debt. He's got to pay some taxes, and there's a bunch of other stuff that are going to come up, right? Translation, a demonstration that I kind of go through with the whiteboard. It ends with 2.75 million after the wash, not 5 million, 2.75, right? So um, he's got that money in the bank account. Now, what does he need to do? He needs to invest it, right? Because he can't just leave it in the bank account. And this is a guy, I've said this a few times, but he got rich slowly and then tries to get much richer faster, right? How does the story end? Well, it ends very poorly. He pours $2.75 billion. And what happens, he ends up on my phone as a business consultant 5 years later, quite frankly, in tears. And that's happened, more times than you'd imagine, basically wishing he'd never sold the business after, hearing my podcast or this exact advice, seeing my demonstration in Cancun or, at Business Coaching Mastery. So again, it can be quite heartbreaking, to be honest with you, to have that call, right? The frame is old money equals never sell. You want to build a higher level frame. You want to build a business you can sell tomorrow, but don't want to. That's a higher level frame than exit, in my opinion. So the solution rather than sell is what? And yes, of course, there's going to be nuances to this, but you want to hire the number 2 guy from the number 1 competitor, okay, or somebody elite in your industry. And then you want to incentivize him or her with equity and profit sharing, right? You show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes, is what Charlie Munger says. So the new guy comes in, the number 2 guy from the number 1 competitor, as an example, builds the business. And the person who is going to sell it, the person who owns it, he consults the new CEO, right? And again, remember, he became a consultant later in life. Well, he consults to his own company, to his own CEO, right? What does that new person do? Well, they are younger, got more energy, got more, oomph. They're really dialed in on this thing, and there's massive incentives in play. What does he do? He builds it to $1.5 million in earnings, and the guy just got a raise rather than a haircut investing that he wasn't expecting, right? And by the way, let me tell you what else happens. He sells the business and he gets insanely bored because he realizes that other people are working during the day and he's got nothing to do or no one to hang out with, right? And by the way, his wife is totally sick to death of him, right? And there's only so much golf you can play until you get really bored with it, right? So that's the frame that I would give you. And again, quite frankly, a very important one. Everybody out there is looking to exit, and I understand that. No doubt I get the sexiness, as do you. But in many cases, I can tell you that it's something that they wish they'd never done, right? Because what does Warren Buffett say? He says when he buys a business, how long does he want to own it for? And the answer is forever, right? So back to the question. What did he say? Wants to sell the house for 1.5 million for retirement and buy a $750,000 condo. And the game plan is to free up 750 grand of cash, right? Well, there's a similar dynamic to what I just described. What's he got to do? You sell the house for 1.5, you got to pay the agent, commission, right? Let's call that 50 grand. Staging, painting, and home repairs. Let's assume they got to put 50 grand into the house in order to get it over the line. There's going to be some capital gains tax. I'll assume there's some exemptions, right? But they're likely going to spend about $100,000 in tax, depending upon where they live, right? Well, Now, what are they going to do? They're going to buy the new place and they're going to buy that for 750, right? There's going to be some closing costs. Let's call that 20 grand. There's going to be moving and probably want to get some new furniture for the new place, right? So it fits properly. Let's call that 50 grand. There's going to be renovations to make it quote unquote feel right, feel like home, right? Remember, these are people in retirement. They're not interested in living in, you know, a, a hostel or like a college dorm room, right? So you're going to spend some money on that. And I'm sure there's some other things that I'm not thinking about, right? But where I'm trying to go um, is the end result is they end up freeing up like 400 to 450 grand, which is a little bit over half of what they were expecting. Remember, they're expecting to get 750 grand, right? Like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett would call this movement, right? You don't make the money when you buy, you don't make the money when you sell, you make the money when you wait. Right. And yes, there are incredible nuances to that, right? But basically, it tends to be a bad idea. I'm going to say not most of the time, right? But a good percentage of the time, right? So, and then the worst news, the new place doesn't feel like home, right? It feels too small. They miss their old neighbors. They miss their old neighborhood. Don't like their new neighbors. Their new neighbors don't like them, right? Because they miss their old ones. And the discovery that they come to often is the extra money didn't come with the lifestyle they thought they were signing up for, right? So like downsizing is often not the free money that it's all cracked up to be, right? Transaction friction is going to eat 10 to, I don't know the numbers, right? Like 10 to 30% of the equity, right? And then potentially the emotional cost can be devastating to mom and dad in retirement because they're not, now they're not happy in their own four walls, right? So if you love your home and your area, keeping it is often the highest ROI of all time, right? So then what would I do and what would I recommend for consideration for this client, right? Is a wealth strategy, which, but and again, may or may not fit, but borrow against the equity in the existing house, right? You get that cash out, it's going to be tax free. And then you buy the new smaller one at 750 grand to live in, right? Rent out the bigger house they just moved into. Now they own two places, and that's the start of becoming wealthy in real estate. You don't get wealthy in real estate owning one home. It's not going to happen, right? It doesn't work that way. So getting rent, and you're like, oh, okay, well now we got to get a renter. Getting rent from one house is a pretty easy task. There's no need to outsource this in any way. And assuming that you pick right when choosing the renter. And again, you've only got one house to rent out and you got to call the references and you got to make sure you get, you're not looking for somebody single, you're looking for, a family. But at the end of the day, you got to choose well. If you don't choose well, this could end horribly. So, most people want to sell their business and exit. Truth is, building a business you can sell tomorrow and don't want to is that higher level frame. It comes back to what Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett would say, and that's no movement, right? Again, Charlie Munger, the money isn't in the buying, the money isn't in the selling, but the money is in the waiting, right? So those are my thoughts. 750 grand is likely not going to be 750 grand, quite possibly half of that after the wash. By the way, that may or may not have helped, but that's what I'm thinking and what I'd be explaining for consideration. And they might hear all of that and still go with it and say, this is what we wanted to do. But remember, the goal is to end up wealthy. That is the real problem we are looking to solve, that they are looking to solve. Like the two things that are very uncommon, being old and rich. So when you meet somebody who is old and rich, I suggest you follow the old 2 years, 1 month, and you listen, because I probably have some good lessons. But anywho, so that might be more confusing than helpful, but that is, it's. I can tell you comfortably this: selling a house for 1.5 million and then buying a $750,000 condo is not going to end up with a net result of 750 grand. That's what I'm going to tell you. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. Road dog. I have a high 8-figure client with a 7-figure marketing budget, helping them market themselves and wondering if you have any experience at this level. And there's a couple spelling mistakes there, road dog, but that's okay. Okay. Get an 8-figure client and a 7-figure marketing budget, ultimately. I'm not going to pretend to be the guru here because I am not. Um, but I'll tell you this, Steve Jobs, somebody who I have studied at a very high level, he would tell you that marketing is about values more than it is about marketing, right? The ultimate level of marketing is branding. I'll say that's in my opinion, right? Some people will disagree with that, and that's okay. They will say it's direct response, but branding is the highest level of marketing. I think you'll find the experts, the legit experts that are old and rich, the Charlie Mungers, the Warren Buffetts, etc. They would agree with me there, right? So, when somebody says, "Pass me a Kleenex," and you've managed to create like a verb or a noun with your branding, you've really done your job. Maybe you done it too well, okay? Because now the competitors are calling themselves Kleenex as well. But anywho, you need to be you need to be insanely clear on what you want them to know about you. I know Steve Jobs would say that, right? Like Tony Robbins plants the seed of the word mastery like 200 times in the first day of his 4-day seminar, and then sells you what? Mastery University. What's inside Mastery University? Business mastery, life mastery. Um, and then there's a third one. I can't think of it right now, but I'm sure that it's also got the word mastery in it, right? And by the way, he sells it for 10 grand and he sells about 1,000 units, right? My loose math tells me that's about 10 schmil. Not too bad for a few days work, right? So, and that's called a through line, right? Mastery defined and then repeated 200 times. It's different than branding, but every coach should know and understand the higher level concept of a through line, in my opinion. Like if I'm doing my job right, what you think of me and focus.com is profit acceleration, right? That's the operating system, and that's what can be installed into any business, right? Translation. It's not about, it's not high level marketing, 7-figure marketing of an 8-figure business. It's not about talking about features, advantages, chip size, chip speed, or how our product is better than the product of our competitors because of X, Y, Z. You never hear Nike talk about how their shoe is lighter than Reebok's. Never hear Apple talk about why they're better than Microsoft, right? Like Steve Jobs often talked about milk marketing themselves and how they tried to convince the market that milk was healthy for you, right? And sales were very lame, and those campaigns failed reasonably miserably, right? Then they launched a campaign that was 2 words, and you might recognize it, got milk, right? It didn't talk about the product. It talked about the absence of the product. And what happened? Sales skyrocketed and that campaign was wildly successful, right? Or the greatest advertising success story is Nike by a comfortable margin. Nike sells a commodity. What do they sell? Shoes, right? That should be a race to zero if you really think about it. But what did they do? Look, here's a question. Who and what do you think of when you think of Nike? Okay, I say Nike, what do you think of? You're likely thinking of the slogan, just do it. You're thinking about their logo, the swish, um, or, and highly likely, you're thinking of a professional athlete and one that you relate to, right? So in their ads, they never talked about their shoes. They didn't talk about how light they were, how comfortable they were. They didn't talk about their t-shirts, their sweatpants, etc. In their in their advertising, they honor great athletes, great accomplishments, great people doing big things, right? It's like when you watch the Olympics and someone wins a gold medal and it brings a tear to your eyes. You can probably imagine think back to a time where you did that, or you watch So You Think You Can Dance. Is that still a thing, right? So You Think You Can Dance? Or American Idol might be a better one, right? But you get teary-eyed after watching somebody sing, and you don't get teary-eyed when you watch the others. Well, what happens when you get teary-eyed? Um, when you get teary-eyed, it's because you see a piece of you in them, right? Nike was trying to accomplish that. Nike has tried to accomplish that. I would dare say that Nike has accomplished that, right? They honor great athletes and they honor great athletic accomplishments. That's who they are. That's what they're about. You're not going to see them sponsoring Jay-Z or Madonna, right? They sponsor athletes. So what Steve Jobs would say in Apple, um, Mark, people want to know what they are about and what they stand for, right? So Nike, they believe in people with passion can positively impact the world. And that's effectively what they stand for. It's like there's a famous story. and I believe it's from Steve Jobs, but it's out there. It's like the story of the man versus the cheetah running a race, right? And they ran against some other animals. Humans came in dead last in the race between them and the animals. Maybe we beat the tortoise, right? We beat the turtle, but everybody else kicked our butt, right? But a man on a bicycle beat them all. And by the way, a man on a bicycle can also follow directions and get to somewhere complicated. The cheetah would never be able to accomplish that in a million years, right? So that's the ultimate metaphor for the personal computer. It's a bicycle to help you get from A to Z. That's the Apple personal computer, right? Because at the end of the day, they had to educate the marketplace. It's a bicycle for your thinking. It's a vehicle to take the thoughts in between your ears and bring them into the real world by using a computer, right? So, like Apple says, if people are crazy enough, what do they say? It's in that famous ad. People who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that ultimately do, right? So the industry moves and changes how you make a computer, where you make the computer, the functionality of the computer, how you distribute the computer, all those things change, right? But what will never change, what does he say should never change? Values and the core values of the company, right? Those are the things that remain constant. And what do they say? Think different, right? It's like profit is the domino that knocks over all the other dominoes, right? So another example of this would be make America great again, right? It doesn't matter if you love Trump or hate him, that marketing message drives to the heart of an American, right? Like what real American doesn't want America to be great again? It's like a core value that hasn't and won't change. I think it's Ronald Reagan. He had that same message. And again, he's regarded as an absolute legend in American politics. The guy was an actor at the end of the day, right? Actually, I think his was "Let's Make America Great Again." And then by shaving off one word, guess what? It fits on a hat. It's significantly more marketable. Quite frankly, it's marketing brilliance at its finest, right? But who cares about them? What are your values? What are your clients' values? And I can comfortably tell you that this 8-figure client, this 7-figure marketing budget, they're just not thinking along these lines with predictability. This is the way that Steve Jobs thought. This is the way that he taught. This is, if you watch his interviews and whatnot, this is the kind of thing that he'd be talking about. So my question would be like, what is your marketing message, right? What is your 8-figure client's message? And what Steve Jobs would have them ask is, what are the values? What are the core values? And then he would have you work through them with them, right? Like, how are they the bicycle for their audience, right? Like, again, mine is profit acceleration, an operating system that can be installed into any business. It's all rooted in math. It's not an opinion or something that I think might work, right? It's literally rooted in math. Accounting is the language of business. It's not sales and marketing. And a lot of the gurus and influencers would have you think that the language of business is accounting all day long, twice on Sunday. Great. You show me a great business, I'm going to show you a company with great math, right? So, and again, and ultimately the operating system, it's easy for the coach to follow. It's easy for the client to follow. It's easy to measure financial wins. And effectively, it's compounding. Small incremental changes in multiple areas simultaneously give you a compounding financial return, right? So, that's what I would be saying to an 8-figure client with a 7-figure marketing budget. And I'd be trying to find what's their equivalent of think different, just do it, profit acceleration. And I'd be going to what Steve Jobs would be advising you to do is to go to their values, go to their core values. And that's where you're going to find magic, I think, in their marketing and really, creating something that can, like Apple at the end of the day, they bring out the new iPhone and there's a line around the block, right? That's a little bit watered down nowadays, as you probably realize, but at the same time, let's face it, it's, probably, you know what I mean? It's one of the greatest brands of all time. That's without doubt. That no doubt you agree with that. Okay. So anyway, so that's what I would be saying. So hopefully that provides a little bit of value. Okay, and then he goes, sorry about this one, but your current thoughts on your AI rabbit hole. Okay, so my AI rabbit hole, and let me tell you, I am down the AI rabbit hole in a meaningful way. What would I say? Um, like the AI audience, it's focusing a lot on what's coming versus what's working, right? So I just have you like, again, the best predictor of the future is the past. All right. Remember in the 90s, what did everybody say? If you went to the equivalent of Facebook or you went to Facebook, what's everybody going to be saying? And they're going to be saying you need a professional website, right? And then in 2000, what was everybody screaming from the mountaintops? You need an online marketing strategy, right? In the mid 2000s, you need to learn how to operate in a digital world, right? Today, what's everybody saying? You go to your Facebook feed and you're going to read something like, you need to use AI effectively in your business within 2 minutes of scrolling, right? So, what I would say the next level for businesses in an AI world is in grounding your operations, right? Like that's your AI superpower. The way to win with AI is to optimize for clarity and not optimize for prompts, which is what I see a lot of, right? But new, next, and hype is so much easier to sell than dialing in on discipline, dialing in on the fundamentals, right? Like I built an operating system based on fundamentals, dialing in profits, profit acceleration, as I said a minute ago, right? We've integrated AI and built an AI business coaching dojo. It's all dialed in on the installing the operating system easily, profitably, right? Will continue to be. Again, it's very, very clear in its goal in that it is about installing the operating system for the business owner with the business coach, business consulting, guiding them, right? So I would go to like AI. Like when you hear new model, like I just literally saw today, I was reading something that's like new model released, right? Like and it could be Grok and it could be Chat GPT. Like it's sexy and it's attention grabbing. And I'm literally talking about it. So obviously it got my attention, right? But like document your workflows is not sexy, right? So AI is incredible for creating and improving workflows. I would imagine you already know that. If you don't know that, I can tell you that categorically. But the attention economy that we now live in, it rewards what? FOMO, fear of missing out. It rewards and attracts, the attention for cutting in line, the shortcuts, the novelty, the urgency. Whereas foundational work, the real but not sexy stuff, it doesn't and it's not going to go viral for you or for them, right? So what's new is always there with AI because it moves so fast and that's not going to slow down. It's only going to speed up if everything. Excellence. Operational excellence is hard and it's boring, right? Again, not going to go viral. So everybody chases the new feature, the new model. Here's the next level prompt that you're not using. Here's the new tool you need to start using, right? But very few are dialed in on organizational charts, process design, operational mapping, systems thinking, data readiness, business identity. Think of it as going a mile deep rather than a mile wide, right? And that frankly rules out 90% of the people trying to use AI effectively in the business. Why? Because they're really thinking, they're not thinking like this, but what they're doing is they're going a mile wide and not going a mile deep, right? And this is consultants and business owner. So I don't know, the rabbit hole. Like the truth is Chat GPT and the big dogs, they're chasing a big audience. No doubt that goes without saying. But the big audience is dialed in on what? They're not dialed in on going deep. They're dialed in on new and next, right? So like as a coach, ask a CEO for a workflow map, their ICP, ideal customer profile, right? Like the avatar of their ideal client, their decision rules, their internal knowledge base. And what you're quickly going to discover, you probably know this instinctively, but it's like they don't have them, right? So rather than fixing the foundation of what holds the house up, they dial in on shiny, new, and next, right? Like the Facebook ad, right? They think it's going to solve all of their problems, right? That's the same kind of thing. No, it won't. What do they need? They need an operating system installed. They need an upsell, a downsell, a cross sell, a proper upfront offer. They need a market dominating position to separate them from the competitors. They got to control their costs on the way up and they got to raise their prices, roughly, quarterly, biannually, rather than getting a big idea every 18 months and then raising them too much and everybody notices, right? What does McDonald's do? They raise their prices by about 1.7% per quarter, right? What does everybody do? Nothing. They continue to go to McDonald's and they don't notice, right? You and me. So Um, if I took this and I turned it into a flywheel, I think it would look like, OpenAI, ChatGPT pushes an update, right? So that's like 12 o'clock. The media and the influential type, they hype up the updates on social media, right? So that's 3 o'clock. The business owner, like you and me, feel pressure. That's 6 o'clock, right? Pressure feeds into the fear of missing out. So I'm going to put that at 9 o'clock. And then FOMO feeds back into the flywheel. So what does it do? It gets bigger and it gets faster, but in a bad way. A flywheel done right is amazing, but flywheels also, work in the opposite direction, not so good. Again, a flywheel, if you ever seen me train on it, I teach it as a clock versus a flywheel because when done incorrectly, it turns on itself. It goes counterclockwise and basically eats itself, right? So at the end of the day, that, fear of missing out, like it's not unethical, right? It's just aligned incentives. They're after sales and revenue and not necessarily results for users, not necessarily their clients going a mile deep instead of a mile wide, right? It's not profitable and it's not going to go viral. Telling the business, and posting on social media before you pay for the new AI feature or get consumed by it, spend the next 30 days creating a map of your processes, your workflows, and clarifying your current business position, right? Like try it. I gotta tell you, you're gonna get crickets, right? New and next is sexy, right? The fundamentals are not. Fundamentals are what win the game, though, in an AI world. And I don't think enough people are dialed in on that. They're not using it as a business partner. They're using it as something, to write emails. So, but most business influencers will call it, again, the people that are loud on social media, they're not in their sweet spots or, they're in sweet spot. 5 new AI tools you need for your business. That's what they'll say. Use this AI prompt for maximum results. They'll say that. Get your AI. I saw something today, get your own AI clone. Right? Which, by the way, I think is a great idea, but is that the starting point? Is that, it falls under new and next. If you're using the AI clone to go further deep, as in a mile deep, as opposed to a mile wide, it would be different. Is that something you need straight away? Um, I'd say no, right? And then where they're not comfortable is organizational design, business model, financial model, change management, workflow engineering, right? You can't teach what you don't understand, right? So influencers are going to tell you, on Facebook that AI excellence looks like pick a model, write prompts, integrate a chat bot, and then build a clone of yourself, right? They don't understand that the real AI excellence looks like prepare your business to be automated at a higher level and maybe be automated, period, right? Standardize and externalize what you do and how you do it. Create the clarity you and your business has avoided for years, right? This stuff is foundational and they aren't good at it. It's not the new sexy. So what they do is they promote tool chasing, right? And by the way, it works and it gets likes and it gets comments and it gets shares, etc. I mean, and by the way, don't listen to what I'm saying. Go to your Facebook feed and then you tell me if you recognize that as you're scrolling through Facebook and Instagram, and I think you'll find that absolutely. So, anyways, it's just selling and buying new AI tools when they haven't really dialed in on the old ones. Let's put it that way. So, new and next. It's in many ways a distraction, right? Remember, focus is not about focus. Focus is about eliminating distractions. I would say that there's an insane amount of distraction around AI. It's like, people buying the book and then they don't read it. They get through the first chapter, read the back cover, and feel like, they feel better, right? Same thing. You buy the new AI tool when you haven't used the last few. And I think they feel better for a short period of time. It's a little bit of retail therapy, but it's not really getting them where they want to go. So that's my thought of the day on AI. I think what I'm really trying to say there is you want to be, you and your clients want to be thinking a mile deep as opposed to a mile wide. And let me tell you that the cool tools that you currently have in AI can do some wonderful, wonderful things. And I think you should, forgo some of the upgrades and whatnot and the new tools and just dial in on what you got. Dial in on ChatGPT or Grok and you'll be just fine. Okay, he wants me to finish Zen. Give us your Zen thought, KB. All right. My Zen thought, I think much of my Zen thought probably went into when I was speaking about my boy Adrian a minute ago. Um, okay, so it's daylight savings as I'm here, right? Depression goes up when it gets dark early, right? And I said in an email and I got a little bit of feedback on it. Your job is to not talk about how dark it is at 5:30 for at least a week. Right. So and if you are feeling that, and I can tell you that my wife is feeling it. I guess I'm feeling it maybe to a degree. But what are you going to do? Look, step outside, calendarize it, right? Go for a walk between 12 and 2, get some sunlight, ideally barefoot walking on the ground, like walking on dirt, sand, grass, right? Not the pavement in a perfect world. And with your shirt off, also can provide a little bit of value. Why? You're getting a little bit extra vitamin D. Depression is an unhealthy focus on the past, and anxiety is an unhealthy focus on the future. Right? If you agree with that, and I most certainly do, um, what's the solution? Right. So if you're currently anxious or you might be feeling a little bit down and depressed and in the doldrums, what's the solution? And I can tell you holidays are here. Um, the solution is your presence, right? The greatest gift that you can give your loved ones, especially at a time like Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, etc. The greatest gift you can give people who care about you and you care about them is your presence. And by the way, the holidays are going to be over soon. And what are you going to say? They went by so fast. If you would like to slow down time, how do you do it? Guess what? Give yourself the gift of presence. And that is the way that you slow down time if you want to, have that time with your family and your friends and your loved ones. Um, Take a little bit longer, which, by the way, I'm going to highly recommend. And I said when I was talking about Adrian, like anxiety is the price of ambition, right? You got to act accordingly. Like ambition is your greatest strength, but also your greatest weakness, right? So ambition channeled can create anything, but can also be channeled to create crippling anxiety where nothing gets done. Again, it's like a flywheel. It's like the clock, but it's going in the opposite direction. Um, so I would say from like a rather ambitious person, um, that's me, your anxiety, um, your your anxiety, you might be thinking instinctively like your anxiety is going to go away when you finally accomplish that goal, right? Your anxiety does not go down organically as you start to achieve more and knock over your goal. So if that's what you think is going to happen and that's what you're working towards to rid yourself of the anxiety, I dare say you're going to be in for a nasty surprise. If anything, it compounds, right? So you ask me, you go, okay, well, solution. I think the solution is just accepting that anxiety is the price of your ambition. And don't try to rid yourself of it because you just can't. What you got to do, you got to manage it. And how do you manage it? By being grateful, by exercising presence, as I just said, exercising gratitude, exercising spirituality. Like depression is usually, no, I'm going to take the word usually out of there. Depression is often, maybe even just sometimes, because I've got some feedback in the past where I got to be a little bit, because what I do not want to do, my pause here and my thought is that I don't want to minimize the reality of depression because it is most definitely a real thing. And there's some people that struggle with it wildly, and my heart goes out to them wildly. Um, but I'm just going to say, so depression is quite often, okay, that's the way I'm going to say it, a deep-seated hunger for spiritual awakening, right? So again, if you agree with that, or if that sounds like something you're interested to hear more on, I would just say like learn to meditate. Go for long walks without your phone, walking on the ground, like I said a minute ago, and ideally with a bit of sunlight. Again, the shirt off is going to help. And why is that? So your body gets a little bit of sun and vitamin Z, right? Also, like zoom out and take note of your progress and how far you have actually come. Like just to be alive is a blessing on steroids. right? You can imagine I've had a hell of a week. I can just tell you, but just to be alive is a blessing on steroids. And to be alive and healthy in this moment here as you're listening to me, it's just pure gold. And by the way, you know this, um, but it is not going to always be that way for you, right? So what do? Be grateful. Take advantage of it. Well, you can go take a long walk without your phone, with your shirt off, and walking on the grass, walking on the sand, walking on the dirt, etc. Exercise that. It's a great way to be present. And by the way, like for me, truthfully, it is what I'm describing here is a daily, weekly, quarterly, annual battle that I need to manage. Right. So again, anxiety is something that I have um, had as a, I'm going to call it a condition without doubt, but I'm a rather ambitious individual, and that's just, I've come to grips with the fact that that's just the way it is, right? I remember a great mentor of mine once told me, he said I was chasing a ghost. And what he meant by that is my brother, right? So my brother died, he committed suicide when I was 16 years old, and I'm trying to honor him and I'm trying to accomplish for him. That was a wild, wild realization, and it quite frankly helped me immeasurably. So my translation for you is don't chase ghosts. Yours might not be your brother, but it might be something similar. And as I say that, you might be able to relate to it. All I would tell you is be grateful, be present, potentially learn how to do things like meditate. No doubt you've probably meditated in the past, but then you don't do it regularly. What I'm going to challenge you to do is maybe go on a 30-day diet, especially with holidays and whatnot around the corner. Might be a good time for you to dial in and say, okay, I'm going to give this 30 days and I'm going to meditate for 15, 10, even, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't do an hour, right? Because then it'll stop it from doing it. It's too big. It's too bold potentially. But 10 minutes of meditation every day for 30 days. And what you might find is, guess what? You got yourself a new habit. And it might just be the thing that, because you're listening to me, I'm going to guess that you're pretty ambitious. It might be the thing that can, rid you of some of those depressive thoughts and that anxiety that might come at you. To remember, you're not getting out alive. I'm not getting out alive. So maybe use that as a tool in your tool belt. Anyways, I hope I'm not being depressing here. Anyways, Evan Road Dog here to jazz things up is sometimes good. But anywho, that is what I got for you today. Road Dog would then throw this to me and say, give me your one thing. What's my one thing going to be? I don't know. I said a lot. I don't know, just maybe that client hitting retirement, there's something along the lines of, I want to sell a house, we're going to sell a house for 1.5 million. We're going to buy a $750,000 condo. That might be an example of where movement is a bad idea. It might be a great idea. In some cases, it will be for sure. But in some cases, it might not be. And just, thinking maybe just again, it's first, second, third, fourth, first, second, third order consequences is where I think it would fall. Just looking at the 750 grand and thinking that that's just going to magically come to fruition, which is just not going to be the case. There might not be quite the numbers that I'm describing. And again, it depends on where you live, tax situation, etc. But, just thinking things through a little bit. And I think that's, when I was talking about AI, there's no doubt, thinking, going a mile deep instead of a mile wide. And I know that that's not revolutionary as I say it to you. No doubt those, you've been thinking about those things. But my question is, what are your actions saying? Right. And are you going a mile deep? Is your client going a mile deep? Are you encouraging and helping and guiding your client to go, a mile deep as opposed to a mile wide? Just the quick fix like the Facebook ad or the clone or the chat bot, etc. That's not going to solve all of their problems. It's AI can be used just so much more powerfully than that. And again, what we did is we built an AI business coaching dojo. We're building another dojo now, which I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, but I got to tell you that it is sexy. It is exciting, and it's not sexy. It is a mile deep all day long. And it's going to help our clients get a wild number of business coaching clients. And I am very excited about it. But anywho, so there you go. It is very late here, by the way, where I am. So what I am going to do is I am going to close off, and I'm going to be going to my head on my pillow because I have got a couple planes to catch tomorrow. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. And I most certainly appreciate any good words and comments and shares and hearts and that sort of thing that you gave to my boy, the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Adrian Olsh. I miss him horrifically. So that's what I got for you, folks. God bless. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.